The Zarin Confederation's capital world of Nexus Prime glowed like a jewel against the backdrop of space, its orbital rings casting prismatic reflections across the planet's azure atmosphere. The human diplomatic vessel Unity approached with measured caution, its sleek hull bearing the emblems of both Earth and the newly formed Interstellar Diplomatic Corps. Inside, Ambassador Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck, her dark eyes fixed on the alien world below. Final approach clearance received. Ambassador. Lieutenant James Morris announced from his station. The Zarin High Council awaits your arrival. Sarah nodded, smoothing the creases in her formal diplomatic uniform. After 15 years of cold relations between humanity and the Zarin Confederation, this meeting could change everything. Earth needed this alliance, or at least that's what the political leadership believed. But Sarah had spent enough time among the various alien species to know that the Zarin's reputation for duplicity wasn't entirely unearned. The Unity docked at Nexus Prime's primary diplomatic station, a massive structure that housed representatives from dozens of spacefaring civilizations. As Sarah and her team prepared to disembark, she caught a glimpse of her reflection in a polished bulkhead. At 45, her face showed the weight of her responsibilities, but her posture remained straight, determined. "Security sweep complete," reported Captain Elena Rodriguez, head of the ambassador's protection detail. "Station authorities have cleared us for transit to the High Council chambers." The diplomatic party made their way through the station's sweeping corridors, accompanied by their Zarin escorts. Tall, graceful beings with iridescent scales and elongated features that humans often found unsettling. Sarah noticed how the other alien diplomats they passed gave them a wide berth, some with barely concealed disdain. High Counselor Vexthor waited in the antechamber, his scales shifting from deep blue to violet, a sign of formal greeting in Zarin culture. "Ambassador Chen," he purred, "the Confederation welcomes you and your species' desire for closer relations." Something in his tone made Sarah's diplomatic instincts flare, but she maintained her professional demeanor. "High Counselor, Earth thanks you for this opportunity. We believe there is much our peoples can learn from each other." The meeting chamber was a marvel of alien architecture, with soaring crystalline spires and gravity-defying platforms. The full High Council, 12 of the most powerful Zarin in the galaxy, occupied their traditional positions in a semicircle. Sarah took her place at the speaker's podium, ready to present Earth's proposal for mutual defense and trade agreements. She never got the chance to speak her first word. The explosion ripped through the Unity's docking bay with devastating precision. The diplomatic vessel, along with its crew of 35 humans, vanished in a ball of plasma fire. Similar explosions cascaded through the station's human quarter, targeting every location where Earth's representatives had been assigned quarters. In the council chamber, Sarah watched in horror as her security team collapsed, their bodies contorting as hidden atmospheric vents pumped an unknown toxin into their section of the room. Captain Rodriguez managed to draw her sidearm before succumbing, her final accusatory glare fixed on High Counselor Vexthor. "Did you truly believe," Vexthor said, rising from his seat, "that we would allow your primitive species to gain a foothold in galactic politics? Humans are barely more than animals, scrambling to join the ranks of their betters." Sarah felt her lungs burning as the poison reached her position. Her legs buckled, but she forced herself to remain standing. "You've made a terrible mistake," she gasped. "Humanity isn't what you think we are." "No, Ambassador," Vexthor replied, watching with clinical interest as she struggled to breathe. "You are exactly what we think you are, an infestation to be contained. Your death, and the deaths of your fellow diplomats, will serve as a message to Earth. Know your place, or face extinction." As darkness crept into the edges of her vision, Sarah's last conscious act was to press the emergency beacon hidden in her uniform's collar. The signal would reach Earth in hours, carrying with it proof of the Zarin's treachery. Her final thought was not of fear or anger, but of certainty that humanity would not take this attack lying down. The news reached Earth 12 hours later. In the United Earth Defense Force headquarters beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Marcus Wright watched the security footage from the Unity's black box transmission. His weathered face remained impassive as he witnessed the systematic murder of Earth's diplomatic corps, but his hands gripped the edge of the situation table until his knuckles turned white. "They thought this would cow us into submission," he said to the assembled military leadership. "Instead, they just authorized their own destruction." He turned to his senior staff. "Initiate Protocol Omega. It's time to show the galaxy what humanity has been hiding all these years." Deep within classified facilities across Earth, weapons and ships that had been developed in secret began powering up. The Zarin Confederation had believed they were dealing with a relatively primitive species with limited military capability. They were about to learn how wrong they were. In orbit, Earth's seemingly modest defense fleet began to change. Civilian vessels shed their disguising panels, revealing advanced weaponry. Trading ships transformed into battlecruisers. What had appeared to be communication satellites revealed themselves as state-of-the-art defense platforms. Humanity had learned from its history. While presenting a peaceful, diplomatic face to the galaxy, they had prepared for the worst. The Zarin's betrayal had simply activated contingency plans decades in the making. In his private quarters that night, General Wright accessed a secure channel to the United Earth Council. "The Zarin Confederation has chosen war," he reported. "Ambassador Chen's final transmission contained everything we need to justify our response. The question is, do we proceed with full deployment?" Council President Helena Santos' hologram nodded grimly. "The Zarin thought they were sending us a message about knowing our place. It's time to send them one of our own. You have authorization for unrestricted military response. Show them exactly what humanity is capable of." Across Earth, military installations hummed with activity. Special Forces teams were activated, crews reported to their real ships, and weapons that had never seen the light of day were brought online. The facade of humanity as a young, still developing species was about to be shattered. In the Zarin High Council chamber, now cleared of human bodies, High Counselor Vexthor received the first reports of unusual activity in Earth's system. He dismissed them with a wave of his scaled hand. "Let them rage," he told his subordinates. "What can they possibly do against the might of the Confederation?" He would learn the answer to that question sooner than he expected, and it would not be the answer he wanted to hear. Humanity's vengeance was coming, and it would reshape the galaxy forever. The revelation of Earth's true military capabilities began not with a bang, but with a whisper. Throughout the solar system, seemingly innocent installations underwent dramatic transformations. Mining facilities on Mars revealed themselves as advanced weapons factories. Research stations orbiting Jupiter housed prototype warships. Even the lunar tourist facilities concealed vast networks of military command centers. Deep within the Cheyenne Mountain complex, General Marcus Wright stood before a holographic display of these awakening facilities. Each point of light represented decades of preparation, billions in secret funding, and thousands of personnel who had maintained the greatest deception in human history. Behind him, the command center hummed with controlled urgency as the United Earth Defense Force emerged from shadows. "Sir, Project Phoenix facilities report full operational status," Colonel Sarah Martinez announced, her fingers dancing across holographic controls. "The Artemis fleet is shedding its civilian disguise and assuming combat configuration." Wright nodded, watching as the tactical display updated to show hundreds of ships dropping their peaceful facades. "Status of the Prometheus Protocol. The AI Defense Network is fully online, General," replied Dr. James Chen, brother of the murdered ambassador. His eyes were hard with barely contained grief and anger. "The quantum encryption systems are active. The Zarin won't be able to hack our communications like they do with other species." The Prometheus Protocol had been humanity's ace in the hole, an advanced artificial intelligence system designed specifically for military coordination and cyber warfare. While other species feared AI and banned its development, humans had embraced it, carefully keeping its existence hidden from prying alien eyes. In high orbit above Earth, The transformation was becoming visible even to civilian observers. The Patterson space station, officially a commercial hub, split apart like a mechanical flower blooming in space. Hidden weapons platforms emerged from concealed bays, and what appeared to be cargo containers reconfigured into state-of-the-art sensor arrays. Commander Diana Walsh's hologram appeared at the tactical display. Her fleet had become legendary among both human and alien forces. "The outer colonies are stabilizing," she reported. "The reformed governments are holding. More importantly, the other galactic powers are reaching out. They want to understand how we did this. They want to understand how a supposedly primitive species managed to hide their true capabilities for so long," Colonel Martinez added. "The diplomatic inquiries are pouring in. Everyone wants to know who we really are." In Earth orbit, Council President Helena Santos prepared to address representatives from over 30 alien civilizations. The gathering was unprecedented. Species that had once looked down on humanity now sought their guidance and cooperation. "We didn't want this war," Santos began, her words broadcast across known space. "We sought peaceful cooperation, mutual understanding. The Zaren's treachery forced us to reveal our true capabilities, but in doing so, they gave us the opportunity to forge a better galaxy." The revelation of humanity's achievements had sent shockwaves through galactic society. Their mastery of artificial intelligence, their advances in quantum technology, their innovative military strategies, all had been hidden behind a carefully maintained facade of primitive development. Colonel Ramirez, overseeing the reorganization of former Zaren military facilities, encountered daily examples of how thoroughly perceptions had changed. The same species that wouldn't make eye contact with humans a year ago are now requesting joint training exercises, he reported. "They want to learn our methods, understand our thinking." In the command center beneath Cheyenne Mountain, now coordinating efforts across hundreds of star systems, General Wright reviewed reports of the galaxy's transformation. "Prometheus has analyzed the diplomatic communications," he noted. 17 major powers are proposing a new galactic council, with humanity having a permanent seat. "They fear us," Dr. Chen observed, studying the data. "But more than that, they respect us. We didn't just defeat the Zaren. We showed the galaxy a new way of thinking." The human approach to warfare and governance had revealed the flaws in traditional galactic power structures, where the Zaren and others relied on rigid hierarchies and brute force. Humanity had demonstrated the effectiveness of flexibility, innovation, and carefully planned strategy. Commander Walsh's fleet, now patrolling the former borders of Zaren space, encountered daily evidence of this change. "Another delegation requesting technological exchange," she reported. "This time it's the Arcturus Collective. They're particularly interested in our stealth systems." "Careful what we share," Wright cautioned. "We've shown what we can do, but we haven't shown everything. Some capabilities remain classified." The human victory had brought more than military supremacy. It had ushered in a new era of galactic politics. The old power structures, based on intimidation and technological superiority, were giving way to something more complex. Species that had once competed now sought cooperation, recognizing that humanity's success came not just from advanced technology, but from innovation and adaptability. On Earth, the mood was both triumphant and cautious. The public, finally aware of their species' true capabilities, took pride in their achievements while understanding the responsibilities that came with their new position in the galaxy. "The Zaren's greatest mistake," President Santos told the gathered alien representatives, "wasn't underestimating our military capability. It was underestimating humanity's potential for both progress and restraint. We hid our advancement not out of fear, but because we understood the importance of proving ourselves worthy of it." In what had once been Zaren space, former enemy worlds were being integrated into a new political framework. Humanity's approach to victory, targeting corruption and oppression while offering paths to reformation, had earned them allies among their former enemies. "Reports from the reformed worlds are encouraging," Colonel Martinez noted. "They're embracing democratic reforms, transparency in governance, The Zaren's old subjects are building something better from the ashes. General Wright stood at his command station, remembering the day they'd received news of Ambassador Chen's assassination. They thought they were teaching us our place in the galaxy, he said quietly. Instead, they forced us to show the galaxy humanity's true nature. The transformation continued to ripple through known space. Species that had once dismissed humans as primitive now studied their history, their cultures, their methods of advancement. The careful balance of power that had existed for centuries had been completely upended. In the primary command center beneath Cheyenne Mountain, Dr. James Chen watched streams of data flow across his screens. Prometheus has breached their primary firewalls, he reported, his voice tight with controlled emotion. Their automated defense systems are going dark. They never suspected we'd developed AI this sophisticated. General Wright stood at the tactical display, watching as red indicators representing Zaren defensive systems winked out one by one. Status of Strike Group Alpha. Commander Walsh's hologram appeared at the briefing table. Her destroyer group had already crossed the heliopause, using stealth systems that made them virtually invisible to conventional sensors. Strike Group Alpha in position, sir. The Zaren's long-range detection grid is compromised. They're blind to our approach. Execute Phase 1. Wright ordered. Show them what happens when you mistake patience for weakness. The first physical strike came at the Zaren's primary shipyard in the Centauri sector. The facility's commanders had barely registered their system's failure when human vessels materialized from seemingly empty space. The Hyperion led the assault, its advanced weaponry targeting key structural points with surgical precision. Multiple targets acquired, Walsh announced from her command chair. Firing solutions locked. All ships, weapons free. The human fleet's opening salvo demonstrated decades of hidden weapons development. Quantum-tipped missiles phased through standard shields as if they didn't exist. Graviton beams twisted and sheared through armored hulls. The Zaren's vaunted defensive systems, compromised by Prometheus, offered no protection. In the shipyard's control center, Zaren commanders scrambled to respond. Their confusion turned to horror as they realized their supposedly primitive attackers wielded technology that matched or exceeded their own. Emergency signals were sent, but they found their quantum communication networks corrupted or blocked entirely. Colonel Victor Ramirez led the ground assault, commanding a division of mechanized infantry that had been disguised as mining equipment on Mars. Their combat mechs, dropped from stealth transports, tore through the shipyard's ground defenses. Multiple breaches secured, he reported. Downloading their technical databases now. If they thought we were technologically inferior, wait until we improve on their own designs. The Zaren response fleet arrived to find their shipyard in ruins and their enemies already gone. The human strike force had vanished as quickly as it had appeared, leaving behind a devastated facility and a clear message. Humanity's technological capabilities had been vastly underestimated. On Nexus Prime, High Counselor Vex Thor received the reports with mounting dread. Impossible, he snarled, his scales shifting to the deep red of rage. Their ships were primitive. Their weapons were centuries behind ours. How could they have hidden this level of advancement? The answer came in the form of more attacks. Across Zaren space, critical facilities found their systems compromised. Supply lines were severed by raids from ships that appeared and disappeared like phantoms. The Prometheus AI systematically dismantled their communication networks, isolating Zaren forces from each other. In Earth orbit, Council President Santos addressed the combined human fleet. For too long, we have hidden our true strength, allowing the galaxy to think us weak and primitive. The Zaren's treacherous attack on our diplomats has freed us from the need for deception. Now, we show them humanity's real face. The main human fleet emerged from its hidden bases throughout the solar system. Ships that had masqueraded as freighters and research vessels now revealed their true nature as warships. The fleet moved with precision that spoke of years of secret training, executing maneuvers that would have been impossible for the primitive navy the Zaren thought they faced. Multiple Zaren battle groups detected on an intercept course, Colonel Martinez reported in the command center. They're attempting to consolidate their forces for a major counterattack. General Wright studied the tactical display with cold satisfaction. They still don't understand. They think this is a conventional war. He turned to Dr. Chen. Initiate Phase 2. Let's show them how humanity fights when we're done playing nice. Throughout conquered Zarin space, sleeper agents who had posed as human merchants and traders for years activated their hidden protocols. Manufacturing facilities began producing weapons instead of civilian goods. Communication relays were reprogrammed to broadcast false orders. The Zarin Confederation found itself fighting an enemy that had infiltrated every level of their society. Commander Walsh's Strike Group Alpha reappeared at their second target, a major Zarin fleet anchorage. All ships, execute attack pattern Delta, she ordered. Let's remind them why humanity survived centuries of warfare on Earth. We didn't just master fighting in space, we perfected it. The human assault was devastating in its complexity. While Prometheus kept the Zorans' automated systems in chaos, human ships struck from multiple vectors, using tactics that had been developed in secret war games over decades. The Zarans' rigid military doctrine proved inadequate against human innovations in three-dimensional space combat. In the Cheyenne Mountain Command Center, General Wright watched the battles unfold with grim satisfaction. Send word to all commands. Operation Righteous Response is proceeding as planned. The Zarin thought they were punishing an upstart species. Instead, they've awakened a force they never knew existed. The first phase of humanity's response was sending shockwaves through the galaxy. Other alien species watched in stunned silence as the supposedly primitive humans systematically dismantled the military capabilities of one of the galaxy's dominant powers. The message was clear. Humanity had been preparing for this moment for generations, and their vengeance would reshape the balance of power among the stars. The Zarin Confederation's chain of command began to fracture 3 weeks into the human offensive. What had started as military defeats quickly evolved into political chaos as humanity's carefully planned strategy targeted not just military assets, but the very foundations of Zarin power. In his private chambers on Nexus Prime, High Counselor Vexthor watched his empire crumbling. The holographic displays showed dozens of systems in revolt, supply lines in chaos, and fleet commanders acting without authorization. His scales had taken on the pale green of fear, an emotion he hadn't felt in decades. High Counselor, his aide interrupted, we've lost contact with the 7th Fleet and the humans. The aide's scales rippled with distress. They've released proof that members of the High Council have been embezzling from military funds for centuries. The humans hadn't just been preparing militarily. They'd spent years gathering intelligence, finding every weakness in the Confederation's political structure. Now, they were exploiting those weaknesses with surgical precision. In the command center beneath Cheyenne Mountain, Dr. James Chen presented the latest intelligence. Prometheus has completed its analysis of the Zarin political structure, he reported. We've identified 37 major power blocks within their hierarchy. 15 are already showing signs of internal conflict. General Wright studied the data with satisfaction. Activate our sleeper agents in their civilian government. It's time to push them over the edge. Throughout Zarin space, carefully placed human agents began their work. Corrupt officials found their secret accounts exposed. Rival political factions received evidence of each other's conspiracies. The rigid hierarchy that had kept the Confederation stable for centuries began to tear itself apart. Commander Walsh's fleet struck at the perfect moment, targeting a major Zarin military installation in the Arcturus sector. But this time, they weren't just destroying military assets. Transmitting the data package now, she reported. Let's see how their troops react when they learn their leaders have been stealing their combat bonuses. The effect was devastating. Entire Zarin military units began questioning their orders. Some openly refused to fight. Others turned on their commanding officers. The Confederation's military discipline, once legendary, was disintegrating. Colonel Ramirez's ground forces encountered minimal resistance as they secured their objectives. These aren't the same forces we faced 2 weeks ago, he reported. Their morale is shattered. They're fighting like they've already lost. On a dozen Zarin worlds, populations that had been kept in check through carefully maintained propaganda began to rebel. Humanity's intelligence operations had spent years documenting the Confederation's oppression of its own people, and now that evidence was being broadcast on every available frequency. Interesting development from the Rigel sector, Colonel Martinez reported in the command center. The Zarin's Merchant Guild is attempting to negotiate a separate peace. They're offering to switch sides in exchange for protection of their trading rights. The Merchant Guild. Dr. Chen looked up from his console. They control almost 40% of the Confederation's civilian shipping. General Wright's expression remained stern. Accept their offer, but verify everything. This war has proven that deception is a game everyone can play. The Zarin response to this internal chaos was predictably harsh, and precisely what humanity had anticipated. As the Confederation's leadership attempted to crack down on dissent, they only succeeded in creating more opposition. Centuries of corruption and oppression were being exposed, and their carefully maintained image of superiority was shattering. Council President Santos addressed the United Earth Council as reports of the Zarin's internal collapse flooded in. "We didn't just prepare to fight their military," she explained. "We prepared to dismantle their entire system of control. They thought their greatest strength was their unity. We showed them it was their greatest weakness." In orbit around a contested Zarin world, Commander Walsh watched as another enemy fleet withdrew rather than engage. "They're breaking faster than we expected," she commented to her XO. "Their entire command structure is paralyzed by indecision." "It's not just indecision," her XO replied. "Latest intelligence suggests 3 major fleet commanders are in secret negotiations with each other. They're planning to declare independence from the Confederation." The human offensive had evolved beyond military victory. They were systematically dismantling the political and social structures that had kept the Zarin Confederation in power for centuries. Every secret revealed, every corruption exposed, every lie uncovered pushed them closer to collapse. Back in the command center, General Wright received word that the Zarin's 7th Fleet had surrendered without firing a shot. Their commander had declared allegiance to a breakaway faction led by reformers in the Confederation's outer systems. "They're tearing themselves apart," Dr. Chen observed, watching the tactical displays show more and more Zarin units declaring independence or simply refusing to fight. "Everything they built through fear and corruption is falling apart." "Fear and corruption are poor foundations for an empire," Wright replied. "They thought killing our ambassador would keep humanity in its place. Instead, they gave us the opportunity to show the galaxy what happens when you build power on lies." The Prometheus Eye continued its relentless assault on Zarin networks, exposing centuries of secrets. Military supply records showing massive theft of resources. Secret police reports detailing systematic oppression. Evidence of assassination programs targeting political rivals. Each revelation sparked new crises within the Confederation. High Counselor Vex Thor's position became increasingly precarious as more members of his own council turned against him. The assassination of the human diplomatic mission, once seen as a demonstration of power, was now recognized as the beginning of the end. Another delegation of Zarin officials requesting asylum, Colonel Martinez reported. This group includes 3 planetary governors and a fleet admiral. "They see which way the wind is blowing," Wright noted. "Accept their surrender, but keep them under close observation. We're not just winning this war, we're reshaping the political structure of this entire sector of space." The Zarin Confederation, which had dominated galactic politics for centuries, was discovering a harsh truth. Humanity hadn't just prepared for war. They had prepared to completely dismantle an empire. Their response to the assassination of their ambassador wasn't just military vengeance. It was the calculated destruction of a corrupt system that had thought itself invincible. 6 months after the assassination of Ambassador Chen, the galaxy had become unrecognizable. The Zarin Confederation, once the dominant power in known space, had fractured into competing factions. In their place, A new order was emerging, one that recognized humanity not as a primitive species to be controlled, but as a force that had fundamentally changed the balance of power among the stars. On Nexus Prime, now under human control, General Marcus Wright stood in the former High Council chamber. The room where Ambassador Chen and her team had been murdered had been transformed into a command center for the transition government. The irony wasn't lost on him. Final report from Prometheus. Dr. James Chen announced, his voice carrying the weight of both victory and personal loss. The last significant Zarin military force has surrendered. The Confederation's central authority has completely collapsed. The victory had come at a cost, but not the one their enemies had expected. Humanity hadn't won through brute force alone. They had changed the very nature of warfare in space. Their combination of advanced technology, strategic intelligence, and psychological operations had rewritten the rules of interstellar conflict. Commander Diana Walsh stood on the bridge of the EDF Hyperion, watching as her cargo freighter shed its false panels. The ship beneath was a destroyer, bristling with weaponry that incorporated both human innovation and reverse-engineered alien technology. Her crew, who had maintained their cover as civilian merchants for years, now moved with practiced military precision. "All ships reporting ready, Commander," her XO reported. "The entire Sol defense fleet is combat ready. We're picking up confused chatter from alien vessels in the system. They don't know what to make of this." Walsh allowed herself a grim smile. "Let them wonder. Priority 1 is securing our solar system. Any alien vessel that doesn't comply with immediate departure orders is to be considered hostile." Across the solar system, alien ships found themselves suddenly surrounded by a military force that hadn't existed moments before. Most fled immediately, carrying word of humanity's deception to their respective governments. The few that hesitated received demonstrations of human weapons technology that sent them running. On Mars, Colonel Victor Ramirez oversaw the activation of the Ares defense grid. Massive rail gun installations rose from the red soil, their barrels tracking potential threats with cold precision. Beneath the surface, factories that had supposedly been producing civilian goods now rolled out advanced combat mechs and aerospace fighters. "Production lines at full capacity," his logistics officer reported. "We can have the first wave of assault craft ready in 48 hours. The Zarin won't know what hit them." In lunar orbit, the Artemis fleet gathered. Sleek warships, their hulls incorporating stealth technology beyond anything the Zarin possessed, moved into formation. Each vessel represented a different aspect of humanity's hidden military doctrine. Carriers launching squadrons of aerospace fighters, destroyers armed with weapons that could crack planetary shields, and frigates equipped with electronic warfare suites that could blind enemy sensors. Back in Cheyenne Mountain, General Wright received confirmation after confirmation of facilities and forces revealing their true nature. The deception had been massive in scope. Nearly every human installation outside Earth had served a dual purpose, maintaining legitimate civilian operations while concealing military capabilities. "Message from the Council, sir," an aide reported. "They're ready to address the public about the transformation." Wright nodded. The time for secrecy was over. Humanity needed to understand that their apparent technological limitations had been a careful facade, maintained to keep potential enemies from realizing the truth until it was too late. Council President Helena Santos' broadcast reached every corner of human space. Her words were measured but carried unmistakable steel. "Citizens of Earth and her colonies, today we reveal the truth. For decades, we have presented ourselves as a developing species, learning our way among the stars. This was a necessary deception. The Zarin Confederation's treacherous attack has forced our hand, but make no mistake, we have been preparing for this possibility since we first reached beyond our atmosphere." As she spoke, footage of the military transformation played across screens throughout human space. Citizens watched in amazement as their seemingly modest defense forces revealed themselves to be one of the most advanced military organizations in known space. "We are not the primitive species the Zarin believe us to be," Santos continued. We are humanity, resourceful, determined, and far more capable than our enemies suspect. The Zarin fought to teach us our place in the galaxy. Instead, they will learn the cost of underestimating the human spirit. In his command center, Wright watched the reactions pour in from across human space. There was shock, yes, but also pride and determination. The facade had served its purpose. Now it was time for action. Sir, Colonel Martinez called out, we're receiving reports of Zarin fleet movements. They're mobilizing in response to our revelation. Wright's expression hardened. Good. Let them come. Humanity is done hiding. Signal all commands. Operation Righteous Response is now active. It's time to show the galaxy exactly what humanity can do. Throughout the solar system, humanity's hidden strength continued to emerge. The greatest deception in human history had come to an end, and in its place rose a military force that would shake the foundations of galactic society. The Zarin had fought to crush a primitive species. Instead, they had awakened a sleeping giant. Operation Righteous Response began with digital warfare, while the Zarin Confederation marshaled its fleets, expecting a conventional assault. Humanity's first strike came through the quantum networks that connected their empire. The Prometheus AI system, hidden for decades. New diplomatic request, Dr. Chen announced. The Rigel Conclave is proposing a joint research initiative. They want to understand how we developed AI without the problems their civilizations encountered. Humanity's position in the galaxy had been irreversibly transformed. They were no longer seen as newcomers to be controlled or primitive beings to be managed. They had become something unprecedented, a species that had hidden its light until forced to reveal it, and in doing so, had changed the very foundations of galactic society. The galaxy will never be the same, President Santos concluded in her address. The Zarin's act of betrayal was meant to keep humanity in what they thought was our proper place. Instead, it revealed our true place, not as servants or subjects, but as architects of a new galactic order. An order based not on fear and domination, but on innovation, cooperation, and the real strength that comes from understanding both our power and our responsibilities. The stars look different now, filled not with threats to be feared, but with possibilities to be explored. Humanity had emerged from behind its mask of primitive development, and the galaxy would never again make the mistake of underestimating them.